Howdy everybody, we're back with some more RPG horror stories. Let's jump into it. Our first story is going to be by That Ain't Right and is titled DM Says the Infamous No. So for context, this game is with level 15 characters. I'm playing a wizard necromancer and we have a paladin oath of glory, a shadow sorcerer who has 2 levels in rogue, and a life domain cleric. So a heavy spellcasting composition. Our DM is a fairly competitive individual who strives to give his players a challenge, so much that he has often thrown creatures at us with anti-magic field up, and 90% of what we could do is rendered useless. And his encounters are fairly obvious when we are supposed to run and unbalanced. Sometimes we fight one CR 15 creature and we crush it easily, and other times we fight 3 CR 20 creatures with a handful of other powerful minions. I can't remember last time we had a challenging fight that we won. The difficulty has always been win combat by round 3 or have to run away as fast as one can from combat. Okay, to be fair, for 5e, balancing combat can be kind of tricky. The dice can swing a balanced or even tough encounter one way or the other quite quickly. I've had bosses that should have been challenging for my party just absolutely get mopped up in no time at all, and they end up hitting like a wet paper bag when they actually did get to hit. Then I have more normal or even easy encounters that end up putting my party at death's door. As your PCs level up, and they have more tools, it gets harder to balance combat to make it challenging for them. Usually in one of two things I find end up happening. Either A mosh pit of like okay power level bad guys appear and they have to like wade through all of that, or B, a couple of super powerful bad guys that hit like trucks show up and they're contending with that then. There are other ways to counter spellcasters, I will say, for talking anti-magic field shenanigans here, outside of like just spamming that. You know, unless that's a theme of the campaign, like they're fighting some sort of like evil organization that hunts magic users that have like anti-magic field on call. Like there's ways to get around that. Counterspell, if slippery barbs is a thing in your campaign, you could use slippery barbs as well, but counterspell will often do the trick, or giving them advantage on saves that are magic based for some reason, or maybe even making them resistant to the types of damage you know your party likes to use. You know, fire, fire, cold, psychic damage, what have you. You can make your enemies, you know, resistant to it to add that layer of challenge if that's what you want to do. Beyond just like anti-magic field, you don't get to do anything. However, to be fair, our DM has done things to make us stronger, like giving every party member an extra attunement slot and allow me, in particular, to use a homebrew undead creature I command during combat without maintaining concentration on it during combat. Extra attunement slots can be very OP, so DMs give extra attunement or concentration or whatever out with caution. You can do a lot of damage with an extra attunement slot or the ability to concentrate on 2 spells at once. So just be very careful with it. Just super duper careful. My frustration is the fact that our DM seems to change our completely fudge numbers or rules when we outright counter one of his monsters. For instance, we fought this lightning-breathing giant. We knew it was coming, so I prepared a wall of force mid-air to protect myself, and the DM decided to lob/mortar these lightning balls at me, even though it wasn't a thing in D&D. Other things will be, he'll ask, does a 21 hit? And I'll say, normally it would, but I'll cast shield to give myself a 22. And then he'll say, oh, sorry, I meant it was a 23. And he won't give me back my spell slot or reaction for wasting it on something he misinformed me about, and he does the same thing for the party. He'll bump up hostile creature saves after we think we do save them. It's incredibly annoying. So I just do my best to stay as far back as possible during combat. Okay, so swapping saves or hit numbers is kind of bullshit unless the DM misread or did the math wrong. That happens. I've personally been there myself. But if the DM sees that a 21 doesn't hit and decides, F it, it's a 23 now, that is too much. I can understand homebrewing abilities, like a mortar lightning ball could be really cool, especially if your party has a tendency to use Wall of Force quite a bit to counter enemies then. Now, if you change how the ability works mid-combat, that can be a little bit too much as well. Homebrewing, though, enemy abilities can be fun, and it's a fun way to make combat more challenging and keep your players on their toes, especially if they've been playing 5e or whatever system for a long time and they kind of know the rigmarole of how things are going to act. Now, My hope is that OP isn't reading stat blocks or just no stat blocks and is mad that the DM is changing these stats prior to combat. It doesn't sound like that. Let me be upfront here. It sounds like this is happening mid-combat, like the DM does something, it fails, so he pivots immediately and changes what it does. That's what it sounds like. That being said, on monster stat blocks, they can and should be changed as needed. Obviously, there need to be limitations on that. DMs should keep in mind balancing concerns when changing stat blocks and not just upping numbers to be competitive with their players mid-combat. I can understand also there's an argument to maybe change or alter HP bars as you do combat to kind of give more of a flow to combat, to make things ebb and flow a little bit better. I know I've done that where we've had like a combat that is kind of slogging on, and I'll be like, okay, we've been going on for like an hour and a half now. My players are starting to lose steam here. Maybe we wrap this the fuck up because it's just going, and we maybe lower the HP bar on the enemy so that way it comes quicker than normal. Or if I need it to be very cinematic, you know, I want one particular character to get the spotlight if possible, I will do my best to try to give them that and maybe let them get the last hit so they can get their cool moment where they strike down this enemy that's just been, you know, just a massive pain in the ass for them all campaign or as part of their backstory. But that being said, you have to be very careful when you're altering it, and don't just alter it mid-combat to gotcha your players. Don't do that, that's not cool. However, the most recent and irritable example is when the party stole an artifact from an angelic host, which called down a group of angels' wrath upon us. All of their damage they did was radiant, but was especially bad for me seeing as how I was an undead who was weak to radiant. However, I remembered that one of my spells gave me immunity to radiant damage. Tasha's Otherworldly Guise, banner spell by the way. That's their writing, not mine. I haven't used it personally. It was the first time I'd ever casted it, but I took it seeing as how if we ever come across something that could deal radiant damage to me, I would have my radiant weakness covered with this spell. So I proceeded to cast the spell on myself with no reaction from the DM. I was pretty pumped about it, so the DM proceeds to shoot a celestial beam at me and asks me to make a dex save. I fail and he says you take 28 damage, but that'll be doubled to 58. You're weak to it. I think they meant 56. I then, in a smart-ass tone, I'll admit, "Nuh-uh, I have immunity to radiant damage." He stopped and looked at me and said, "BS, you have weakness to it." I told him about the spell I casted on myself and that I chose the upper planes mode. The DM paused for a brief moment and said, "Okay, then you'll take 56 points of fire damage." I asked him why, as he said, the angels harness the power of the sun so they can convert their radiant damage to fire damage. Okay, that's just the DM trying to gotcha, and that's not cool. OP took and cast a spell to help them in a situation like this. DM is just trying to gotcha you and punish them. Let OP have their moment here. This is part of the game. Part of 5e especially, as a ttrpg, is your PCs get abilities that make them quite strong compared to the enemies so they can have this hero moment. This cool spell they cast to block this incoming massive set of damage that would otherwise fucking destroy their character. Like 5e, that's what it kind of is built to do. So let your PCs, let them feel like heroes. You know, like this could have been such a really cool moment for OP here. An angel decides to smite this undead enemy in front of him with the holy light of fucking God and finds out that it does jack and diddly squat. A blinding light. It just, you know, washes over OP's character and the angel laughs, you know, a mighty righteous fucking giggle basically, and is like, "I have defeated the undead scum." The light fades and oh look who's untouched. It's the fucking undead necromancer, and they get to have an oh crap moment, you know, or you give the PCs an oh crap moment. Cool. You avoided that radiant damage. The angels now know they're going to beat you to death, and now you're going to get the righteous fury with a holy mace. Maybe that won't do radiant damage. Then you can just swoop in, angelic wings and all, and beat the shit out of the necromancer. Give him an oh shit moment. It could go either way. It's cool. It's an ebb and flow of a story. Let it happen. Incredibly frustrated by this, I just say, "Okay, but wouldn't I take 28 damage instead of 56? I am not weak to fire damage." And he just looked at me blank face and said, "No." He had zero rationalization for this. Not wanting to escalate the situation any further, I relent, I feel my concentration save, and I fall. I was 40 feet up in the air, and I am on a single digit of HP. Thankfully, shortly after, our cleric rolled well on his divine intervention and teleported us away from the fight. After the session, though, I talked to the DM privately and said how I felt he was being blatantly unfair to me. He said, I said at session 0 that this campaign would be hard and that you would have challenging fights. But I also made your characters OP and they have lots of bullshit abilities, so I'm just returning the favor. If you don't like it, then you're more than welcome to leave. Now, normally I would have just left at this point. If this wasn't someone who I was friends with, I'd just say, okay, and leave. However, I'm this person's friend, so it's pretty difficult to just up and leave. Now, OP says the DM's their friend, but the way this DM is acting is not very friend-like. If my friend came to me and my friend said, Davey, I think the way you're DMing is being blatantly unfair to me. You're trying to gotcha me and you're just trying to fuck my character over. I would go, oh shit, what did I do? Let's take a look at this situation and figure out either what I did wrong or what misinterpretation has happened or what. Because I want to be friends with my friends and I want to not hurt them and piss them off. Especially in a way like this where they're coming to me and they're saying, hey, I feel like you're mistreating me. You know, a valid concern they can have. If they're your friend, they should be concerned. In like a good way. Not like, well, bitch, it's my way or the highway. You know, buckle up, buttercup, or get the fuck out. Like to me, that's not a friend. That's not very friendly. Overall, though, I can understand not wanting to leave the table, especially if it's a table of your friend or friends. You know, perhaps to reach, I would recommend in your case OP here, reach out to the other players with your concerns. Perhaps they have similar ones. Then you can all politely talk to the DM as a group with your concerns. This might get the DM to then adjust their behavior a little bit. Other than that, if you don't want to leave, you still consider the DM your friend. I suggest getting someone else to DM the next campaign, or you DM the next campaign so you don't have to deal with this gotcha DM. Because that's not going to stop. If they enjoy running this style of campaign, that DM is going to continue to run that style of campaign over and over and over again. You know? Unless you all come to them and say, hey, we don't like this style of campaign, and they're willing to be flexible. So just talk with them about it if you want, or talk to your other players about it, or ultimately get somebody else to DM, either you or someone else, the next campaign so you can have it hopefully flavored in a way that is more beneficial to how you enjoy playing and not towards how a gotcha DM likes to play. But at the end of the day, I would be very, very hesitant to call this person friend if they're going to be very my way or the highway like that, especially with something like a game. If you guys haven't yet, check me out at twitch.tv/VanDavey. Please follow me there. Links are in the description down below. I stream on Twitch throughout the week and would love to have you come hang out with me. We can talk ttrpgs, how your day's going, what games I'm playing, which I'm playing a big variety of right now, though I'm kind of focused on Arc Raiders. I'm really, really enjoying Arc Raiders. Would love to have you come hang out. I am working on getting the Discord fully finalized. I'm trying to get some interesting RPG assistance bots in there and stuff. I kind of want to create a place where you guys can hang out, post episode ideas, where if you're looking for games to be had online with people, how to get those groups together basically and kind of organize yourselves in a place. And I'm trying to get it added so there's places for like resources for some systems out there, stuff like where you can play, so like Roll20 resources and stuff like that, just so you guys have the ability to kind of get together and group, because I know it can be hard to find tables, either locally, maybe the system you want to play is not a thing, or you don't have the ability to go to those kind of places, but you can maybe hopefully find a community to play with here full of like-minded cool individuals. So I'm hoping to get that up soon. Just bear with me. I'm trying to get necessary bots in place and resources and stuff so it can be like a fleshed out thing you guys can utilize if you would like to. So stay tuned for that. Okay, our next story is going to be from Marvel Lurful? I think it's Marvel Lover, but I might be mispronouncing the name, and is titled Feeling Disrespected After Addressing a Tone Shift in My Campaign, so I left the game. Alright, I have been in a campaign for close to 3 years. That's quite a long campaign. And recently I tried to address something that was bothering me about a new player. T. About a month or two back, T was invited to the game by the DM, who is dating T. And lately, T's humor has been throwing off the tone of the game. His very first in-character moment was him making a joke about his character ordering, quote, a bowl of dildo soup. Yeah, even with full context, it hardly makes any sense. And after that, he had his character be, quote, hung by his own dick in the past session, or a past session, which I wasn't there for, thankfully. That kind of humor isn't really my style, and I felt completely out of place, shifting the tone of the game in a way that isn't fun for me. We've been playing in a kind of grim, dark, gritty-ish campaign with zany, levity bits of comedy interspaced throughout, but T's energy really changed things. Sounds like they added a little bit more sexual humor energy, and maybe the zany humor is not that style of humor. Today, before we started the game, I took the time to address it openly with the group. I didn't call him out in front of everyone or make a scene. I just expressed that I didn't feel comfortable with the tone shift. I said that I wanted the game to feel more consistent with what we had all agreed on, and that it wasn't the kind of humor I was hoping for. I wasn't trying to control anyone's playstyle, I was just being honest about how it made me feel, and I'm not the only one who felt this way, as the tone shift had already started to make others uncomfortable as well. Okay, addressing something like this can be awkward. You could always try this just with the DM first, because maybe they'll be able to directly address this issue behind the scenes, but I feel like you should feel comfortable of bringing stuff like this up at the table. Always make sure to be clear, concise, and not blame others though if you're going to do this, because nobody wants to come out of the gate feeling like they're attacked, and you won't get anywhere because that puts people on the defensive. If others are also having the same issue and you guys talk beforehand, just make sure to mention that others in the group also feel the same. You don't necessarily have to call them out, but it can, be beneficial to say hey, I'm not the only one who feels this way. We feel like the tone of the game is kind of shifting and we don't like where the tone is going. Is there a way we can maybe change up some of the humor that's going on or something like that? That being said though, good on OP for speaking up, because it is important to speak up. If you don't like how the tone of the game is going, how the rules are being interpreted, anything like that, you should make it known, especially when beforehand it was kind of agreed on that it was going to be running a certain way. Just that way a potential course correction can occur to maybe make it more in line with what you were expecting. But then things got worse. My DM, who I really thought understood me, compared my attempt to address this issue to the behavior of a problematic past player named Lee. Lee was a nightmare for me when I was a first-time player. He once cast Geas on me to make me do things against my will, and I was the sole target of his toxicity. That was a whole-ass saga of bullshittery that thankfully came to a close when we finally kicked Lee out of the group. So, being compared to that guy, honestly, it was deeply insulting. It felt like my honest attempt to communicate was being equated with the kind of toxic behavior I'd experienced in the past. Okay, in regards to how Lee was acting, that shit should have been nipped in the bud super early. As soon as Lee tried to cast Geas on another player, if I'm mispronouncing the spell, fuck it, I am, that should have been a hard no. There should be no taking away other players' agency through direct means or something like that unless it is explicitly discussed and agreed upon by everybody at the table beforehand. Because even if it's meant to be a joke and you're not making them necessarily do horrible things that they wouldn't do, you can piss off the player, because the players, you guys put time into your PCs. You love your PC. Some of you see aspects of yourself in your PCs. So to have somebody sit there and attack something you might see a little bit as you take personally, and it's understandable. So that should have been nipped in the bud immediately. This sounds like it went on for longer than it should have, and they eventually kicked him, which is great, but it should have been nipped in the bud immediately as soon as that happened. It'd been DM should have been hey, I see what you're trying to cast. There is no taking other players' agency here. You are not allowed to cast that on a player. You do not get to do that. Hard line in the sand is what that should be, unless it's discussed beforehand. If it is, everybody's okay with it, fuck it, have a ball. Cast it on each other all you want, because everybody's in agreement and now with the understanding that this is a thing that can happen. The DM reached out to me after, but in their message, not a single ounce of responsibility was taken for how over-the-top insulting the comparison was. It was just an attempt to defend themselves in tea. That hit me hard. It felt like my attempt to communicate my discomfort was completely dismissed, and that I was being made out to be the bad guy for speaking up. How this DM is reacting is horrendous. It's super toxic to blame somebody for speaking up in a way that is not aggressive like that. If a player is just coming to you and saying, hey, I have some concerns with the way the table's being run or how this campaign's feeling is going overall, and I'd like to voice those, that's not toxic. Now, if OP sat there and went, T's a piece of shit, T's cracking fucking dick jokes and none of us think it's funny and he's a stupid idiot and he should, I don't know, drive a car off a bridge or something, like, yeah, that's toxic. That's uncalled for. OP would be a piece of shit in this instance, but that's not what the case is looking like here. A calm discussion should have been had between the entire table, and my hope would be the other players during this would get a chance to speak up as well, because oftentimes there is safety in numbers when you're calling out concerns or issues potentially. My hope, and this is not required of OP, is that while they're having this discussion afterwards with the DM privately, that the DM gave them the chance to have them explain, like, hey, like, hopefully OP was like, hey, I really don't like the fact that you compared me to Lee. Lee was really a piece of shit, and I'm just trying to, like, relay my feelings on the situation. I'm not trying to control people. Like, explain yourself just a little bit, because there's a chance there's a miscommunication here, and the DM is being very protective of their partner. Still uncalled for all the DM's part, but there's a chance that that's the case here. So hopefully there was time where they tried to discuss to maybe figure this out and maybe smooth over tensions here. And then maybe then the DM could go, oh shit, I am so sorry. I completely misstrued that. Like, but also I do think you're trying to control, like, then you can have that calm discussion then behind the scenes or something like that. Doesn't appear to be the case here. And it's very unfortunate that happened that way. At this point, I've decided to leave the campaign. The way my feelings were dismissed and the comparison to Lee left me feeling so damn disrespected and unheard. Being equated to the worst problem player I've ever personally encountered just struck so deep that I just can't get past it. It's not about the joke anymore. It's about how my boundaries and communication were handled. I'm really bummed about it because I was hoping to continue enjoying the game with everybody else that I've grown so close to, but now I just don't feel like this is a space where I'm able to do that. Has anyone been in a situation like this? How do you handle it when you're trying to communicate your feelings and it gets twisted into something that makes you feel like the bad guy? I just wanted to enjoy the game, but at this point, I'm not sure what could have been done to resolve it. Again, OP, I'm very sorry that you had to go through this. Like, overall, a calm discussion should have been had. Not the DM immediately jumping to comparing OP to being a toxic player. To me, it's kind of clear that, to be honest, this table isn't really a safe space to discuss things, which ideally your tables should be. Safe and calm discussion can help for needed course corrections so that all continue to enjoy the game. I don't blame OP for leaving. To be honest, I kind of would too if the DM was very aggressive like that to me. Like, this might not be worth my time. I am still shocked that none of the other players spoke up, but not everybody likes confrontation. And if the DM just jumped to 11 immediately, that may have kind of caused that sort of reaction where they just quiet up and don't say anything because the DM is yelling and screaming it and whatnot, and they don't want to have to deal with that confrontation or that energy directed at them, which happens. Hopefully OP finds a better table. It's a shame when a good thing gets ruined by what should have been just a simple discussion and course direction. The only things OP I might recommend, and I don't know if this happened during your DMs or whatnot, but hopefully you were given a chance or took the time to explain, like, hey, I am coming from a place of just wanting to course correct. I am not attempting to control T. I'm not trying to shit talk T. I think there was a bit of a misunderstanding here. Like, I am not being as aggressive as you're trying to make me seem, but maybe they did, and the DM was just stuck in their ways and is like, I'm not going to apologize for this kind of thing. Which happens. Some people are stubborn pieces of shit. Hopefully the other players in the game kind of figure out like, hey, this is a little weird. I don't like how the DM's treating OP here, and maybe they speak up, but I kind of doubt it if they didn't speak up when OP mentioned something or when the DM started yelling at OP and calling him a piece of shit. Because I feel like that would have cleaned up the DM's act real quick if somebody else had hopped in and been like, no, he's not acting like Lee. Lee was a piece of shit. Actually, we kind of agree the way this style of gameplay is going is not what we enjoy. Can we course correct it or something? Like, that might get the DM to get their head out of their ass, as it were. Our last story is going to be from user Green Assumption 2163 and is titled DM, I'm an Archfey. For context, I was a player in a group that a close friend of mine was DMing for. I had typically been a DM for this friend group, so I was excited to be a player again. DM tells us that we're allowed to homebrew some stuff. I attempted to make an artificer subclass. I later switched to gunslinger fighter as it was closer to what I was looking for. When we played, some people had some homebrew stuff like me, but none as egregious as another player, who we will call Maple. It's here that it's important that we bring this was the DM's first time DMing, aside from a practice session months before, to see how the game would run. The DM told us about 2 months before we started what the base of the campaign was and what the story was. However, Maple decided to give the DM an entire homebrew class and species after session 2. It was over 11 pages long. Although this was not during the actual game, Maple asked if they could have several level 20 to 30, something that is typically impossible in 5th edition, characters as allies as their character ran a T-shot. I gotta ask, how the fuck does one hit level 30 in 5e? There might be a homebrew system out there to get you there, but I'm not aware of one that gets you other than like weird boons and stuff. Also, as the DM, I would not accept anything as grand as an entire homebrew class and species after session 2 for a PC that you are already playing. I will say that's good on the DM for 2 months ahead of time, giving the players a heads up of like, hey, this is what the campaign will be. This is what our setting is. This is our play style. Prep within these boundaries. That being said, for first-time DMs, do yourself a favor. If it is your first time DMing, first campaign, first couple one-shots, anything like that, just don't do any homebrew. Just be upfront with your players. Just be like, hey guys, I get it. I would love to see some of the homebrew you guys have, but this is my first time DMing. I do not feel comfortable okaying homebrew, so please work within the confines of what is already approved in the player's handbook in these books or whatever. Just do yourself that favor, because dealing with homebrew is a unique tightrope walk that you have to learn to do, and it is not easy. And if you are not careful, it will fuck up your campaign. You have to be very, very careful when you approve homebrew. Very careful. If you're going to do homebrew, you're going to want to lay out boundaries. And you're going to want to let your players know, whatever I approve to start with, we might need to alter as we go. Because sometimes you're not fully sure how something is going to react in the real world, as it were, until you watch your players interacting and fighting and doing RP and doing whatever in the world. Like, you're not going to know how it melds and works and shapes the world until you see it in action. So don't be afraid to be like, hey, we have hard boundaries on what I'm going to allow. And if I allow something, you need to keep in mind, I'll do my best to work with you, but we might need to alter this stuff as we go. Because sometimes some fucking homebrew out there is not balanced and it is broke as shit. Before we continue that, also, if you do have a player, in this instance, like this, they mentioned that this player, Maple, gave the homebrew and stuff after 2 sessions of playing. I would not allow it if they have been playing the character for 2 sessions. If you want that character to be alive and running around and interacting at the table, I will need a character sheet and any homebrew shenanigans you want a while beforehand so I can review and approve it. Not 2 sessions after. If they get you that shit 2 sessions after, that's a problem. I wouldn't allow that character to be played. Now, if after 2 sessions they had one character, let's say Maple had a character named Syrup, and they did not like Syrup, they thought Syrup sucked, they just weren't jiving with the character, and they wanted to move on to their new character named Leaf, then cool. After 2 sessions, then that would be okay to be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. I want to play this character named Leaf. Here is their, here's the species I want to play. Here's the homebrew class I want to play. What are your thoughts, DM? That is okay. But like playing a character for 2 whole sessions and then being like, oh yeah, by the way, DM, here's where I'm pulling all of these abilities from, as you can see here now. That's bullshit. That's unfair to the DM. That's unfair to all the other players. That would not be allowed at my table. Ever. Continuing though, during session 1, we began doing basic introductory stuff and we were collecting our party members. Everyone ended up joining the party except Maple's character, who said out of character, there's one specific thing that you need to say to me for me to join. We ended up having to threaten to move on without them for them to actually join the party after 20 minutes. A few hours go by and we all think the horror show is over. Not even close. We begin moving towards the main city. And along the way, Maple says that they can, quote, send a Fey army after people they don't like, specifically at Jody and I. To this day, I don't know why. I brought it up to the DM later. It turns out that was a complete and entire lie. Their character was a general of the Fey realm who was disgraced. Were this an in-character threat, I think it would have been a really cool moment of roleplay, but this was completely out of character in an attempt to prove that they were the strongest member of the party. I gotta kind of wonder, is Maple a new player at this table? Like, there's no way they weren't acting like a piece of shit like this prior, right? They had to have been. Or did Maple see that this new person was DMing, they smelled fresh blood and thought, fuck it, I'm gonna take advantage of that. Which is fucked up if you do that. The in-character moment of like threatening to sick a Fey army on people could be a really cool RP moment. This character's disgraced. They cast some threat only for it to be proven as bullshit because they find out they're a disgraced general or something like that. And now they need to make amends with the party or whatever. Not a fan of Maple's demand that the group say some magic fucking words to get them to join the group. It stinks a little bit of main character syndrome for me, or it's telling that Maple is childish as fuck. Or it's both. When we reach the main city, Maple immediately goes out towards the forest outside the city before a Fey that turns out to be their wife mysteriously appears. This was really confusing to all of us, except for Maple. We later learned that they had texted the DM repeatedly after being told no many times, and even threatened to leave the game if she didn't, which would be bad because her backstory was so ingrained in the main plot during this part of the game. Maple also texted the DM just saying, by the way, I'm an Archfey, something that was never discussed with the DM beforehand. You may think this is where it ends, but no. Nope. You want to pull surprise crap like this with me, you'd be out. Not knocking this new DM, it's a tough position to be in, but fuck that noise. We clear things like this beforehand. Any of this backstory bullshit. And especially the bullshit like, quote, I'm an Archfey. No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to pull the I have a +3 sword from my backstory malarkey and think you get away with it. This person, Maple, they reek of main character syndrome. It's going to be a horrible time for all involved if this continues. Now, if the DM wanted to be nice in this situation, they speak with Maple away from the group and say, hey, Maple, cut the crap, or don't add things that were not approved by me beforehand. If you do, you will be struck down and they will be said no. If you don't want to call them out at the whole fucking table, set them in line behind the scenes. Be like, hey, listen, you can't be pulling this. You're gumming up the works and making this go bad. That being said too, if somebody is super duper ingrained in the main storyline and they leave, there is always a way to rewrite the campaign to make it work. So don't ever feel Like, you need to be, as a DM, held hostage by a PC that is super duper ingrained with the story, okay? Let's say, for example, Maple isn't like, I don't know, they are a disgraced Fey general. The BBEG of the campaign is a Archfey of the Sealy Court who, is looking to get revenge on them or try to kill them off in the material plane or something here. I don't know. Or they're trying to cause the Feywild to bleed in with the material plane and take it over. Some big grand plot, and like part of Mabel's coming back from disgrace story is them stopping the Sealy Core stuff. And now, like, obviously the party's involved because they don't want the Feywild to leak into the material plane and fuck things up, and Maple leaves. Oh no, our dear friend Maple was killed by this Sealy Court Shadow Fey, and now we need to gather together to stuff. Like, you can rewrite it. It can be done. So don't let a PC or a player specifically threaten to leave because you're not giving into their bullshit demands. You can always write yourself out of a corner. It can be done. In the moment, it might be scary. In the moment, you might need to tell your party after Maple storms off like a little twat, hey, listen, I need to take a break real quick. I have to kind of reform the story. Maple is a big part of it. They will no longer be with us. Bear with me as I course correct here. I like that term, course correct, this episode. I'm so sorry. But like, there's ways to do it. So don't feel like because a PC is tied to the main plot that there is not a way to write yourself out of the corner that you are now in because they put you there. So don't feel like it's horrible, because it can always be undone. There's always a way. Sometimes you just need a little time to think about it. After this, Maple became obsessed with a knife they had written into their backstory that would petrify people on a critical hit. Jesus, the main character syndrome. Maple threatened to use the knife on Jody and I. That's a big no-no. And the DM told them that they didn't have it and that it specifically said they couldn't start with it. Good on the DM for drawing boundaries here. After this, Maple would go up to every single merchant and ask if they had their knife. This became the most annoying thing in the game while they were in this game. Eventually, they managed to badge the DM enough to go into the Feywild. We were level 3 when this happened. That's a little sketchy. The Feywild's a little scary. We ran into a character named the Oak Lord, an actual Archfey in the Summer Court of the Fey Realm. Maple then proudly proclaimed that they were smarter than him. The DM corrected them, saying they cannot be smarter than the Oakfold, as he is an Archfey, particularly well known for his intelligence and wisdom. This made Maple fly off the rails. They began shouting that their backstory can't be changed and it's against the rules. We eventually managed to calm them down to the point where they're not assaulting our eardrums anymore, but this remained as a regular topic they would bring up. Maple would be out of my game if they acted like that. We are playing a game. We are not running a babysitting service. I do not have time for kids. I do not have time for children's games. I understand people get frustrated. I get it. But there is a time and a place for it. Also, you should not be mad at the DM that they aren't doing what you want because you have to be the main fucking character. This is a side note. The real story ended there, as that was just about the last session they attended for unrelated conflicts with the DM and one of the other players. To be honest, if somebody got into a screaming match like that at my table, I'd be out. It would be out. For sure. Or I would at least be like, you know what, you need to go calm down, go sit in the corner. Sweet, sweet child. Maple's character's class included the following. Every spell on the spell list, including Divine Smite and Armor of Agathis. Interesting. What is there? That's a Paladin Warlock meld. The ability to cast True Resurrection once every 10 days, requiring no components, including spell slots. Maple's species included the following as well. Immunity to water damage. A running joke in our group now is water damage is not real. Spell slots tied to species, meaning that fighters could cast spells. Specifically, it was 3 9th level spell slots. Fuck that. A flying speed of 60 feet. Automatic familiar. This is not normally an issue, but the exact wording was, quote, Fae can have any pets that they want, and strong-arm the DM into letting them have a crocodile-dog hybrid. Again, fuck that. I did forgot to mention, but the game got almost infinitely better when they left. Let's go. Okay, no, Maple would not be in any of my games. And this homebrew would not be in any of my games. This homebrew is too broken. I have had issues in the past with players trying to pass just some of the most broken shit for homebrew. Races that had not only flying, but invisibility, immunity to fucking fall damage. They had advantage on persuasion checks, innate spellcasting abilities beyond just some cantrips, the ability to walk on fucking water, immunity to sleep and charm, and then basically no fucking downsides at all to it. Like, I've seen a realm of Gambit. I've seen the Gambit. I've seen it. I've seen just about everything when it comes to broken ass homebrew from players. When you do homebrew, it's always, though, about trying to find that sweet spot. Your players will often come to you. Now, my group is really, really good in the fact that if they want homebrew, they don't come to me with the most broken piece of shit that has ever existed. Now, they might come to me with something that's a smidge powerful, but I understand and they understand that we're going to talk and we're going to discuss and they're going to find a nice spot in the middle of, broke as shit and me trying to bring that down to like make it more even and more stable. My hope is that you will have a group that is like this, that if they do homebrew, they are willing to meet in the middle there. They understand that there is a caveat. And this should be a thing with any homebrew you do. We will alter that homebrew as needed. Because sometimes homebrew is a little strong. You're like, we can maybe let you get away with it. I think this will be okay. And then it turns out it's just overly abused, stupidly strong, never fails, breaks the game or something in a way you didn't anticipate. And you're like, whoa, hold on. We gotta move that sucker over just a little bit, and we need to make it just a little bit more balanced. So always have that caveat with your players. Like, hey, we're going to agree where it's here, but I might need to bring it down a little bit depending on how it goes. And they need to be okay with that and need to understand that that is a thing that's going to happen and they need to be okay with it. What's good about my players is they understand that things need to be balanced for all players to have fun, because it's not fun when one player is running around being fucking Jesus with a minigun and everybody else is a toddler, with a Tootsie Pop and can't do anything. My big recommendation for newer DMs. Your first campaign, just try not to homebrew at all. For your sanity, you've got enough on your plate as a new time DM, like a first time DM, newer DM, of just trying to run the game, balance everything, keep everything flowing, do all that trying to worry about homebrew is going to be a pain in the ass. So maybe just ban it. But if you feel experienced enough, if you feel comfortable enough and your players do want it, do be open to it. But when my players do try to find homebrew, what I always try to do first, and I think this is how, if you're going to try to do homebrew as a new DM, try it this way. Your player comes to you with an idea. Try to take that idea and make it fit within a pre-existing class or species, and you just reflavor it. Okay? Some players hate the idea of this for some reason. I don't fucking know why. Maybe it's because they want to do something new. They want to be special and the only one that does it or some crap. I don't know. But to be honest, if you take their idea that they're shooting for and you make it fit within something that is official, you'll have a better time. Now that might require you to reflavor things, say you wanted to have a species that flies. Say you want to be, let's say a player comes to you and says, DM, I want to be a giant anthropomorphic butterfly. Just roll with me here. Okay. I want to fly around. I want to be a butterfly. I want to be cool. I want to fly. I want to speak maybe an air language, or I want to speak a butterfly language or something. I want to speak butterflyian or something. Cool. Instead of letting them homebrew up or find homebrew for a butterfly species, go, okay, let's take Aarakocra, and because that's got flying built into it, And we're just going to reflavor it and remake it look like a butterfly, okay? And instead of it speaking Orin, it's going to speak butterflyian or whatever homebrew race language they want to come up with. Like, this is a more simplistic one, but you can reflavor it to make it work. You don't have to immediately run out and go and let them find the most broke as shit or whatever, or poorly written freaking subclass, species, race, whatever, just take it and initially try to fit it within something that works. Because you can always reflavor it, Does the magic come from pack magic? That can be reflavored to not be a pack magic sort of thing, It could be something innately built within them, or like you can reflavor it all you want, Do they want to sit here and all their magic looks like a dragon appearing that casts the magic out of the dragon, like a, 3-foot tall holographic dragon or some shit? Cool. We can do that. That's just a flavor thing. You can reflavor stuff. Just reflavor it to start. And then if you need to, then move outside the bounds of official. That'll probably make your life a lot easier. Because to be honest, the official stuff usually is pretty well balanced. There are some strong stuff. There's some strong stuff out there. And there is some just absolute trash out there as well. But most of the time, you're not going to need to worry about balancing because WotC and others have gone through it already and played it to all high hell. So you're not having to worry about some poorly written, notepad-ass looking homebrew on some sketchy website that was written by a 16-year-old who was a massive edgelord and watched way too many episodes of Bleach or something like that. You don't have to worry about that being balanced. Work with an official. And I think you'll have a good time if you do it that way. Start that way. That being said, everybody, thank you guys all for hanging out. That's going to be it for today. Please remember to like, subscribe, and catch me on Twitch if you haven't yet. I would love to hang out with you guys. Otherwise, let me know what your thoughts are on any of the stories we discussed. Are my thoughts right? Are they wrong? Tell me a situation you've had it with a player at your table who brought some of the most broke-ass homebrew. Was that broke-ass homebrew allowed? How did that end? I don't think well. I'd love to hear, though, in the comments down below, so please, please, please do. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everybody.